Did Joachim ever conduct the Berlin Philharmonic?
Yes. And once I played with him at the Berlin Philharmonic. I played the Chopin E minor concerto.
What was Joachim like as a conductor? What was it like to work with him on the Chopin concerto?
Oh, very easy. I don't remember any difficulties at all, but the Chopin's concerto is not difficult to conduct, is it? You know, there's very little orchestral work in it, and the orchestras hate playing it, don't they? You know, it's very dull for them.
Everything's given to the piano.
That's it, everything. Well, it is a pianist's concerto, after all.
Can you remember Joachim conducting any purely orchestral works, particularly?
Well, I remember his studying the Ninth Symphony with the orchestra of Beethoven. I do remember that. And that was wonderful, but of course their pace wasn't the pace of many of the present-day conductors who rush through it, to my mind, much faster than I remember it.
All the movements were a little bit slower, were they?
I think the tempo, well, you know, you could hear that wonderful chorus, Freude, schöne Götterfunken. You could hear that, but now I find, maybe to do with the acoustics of big halls here, that I don't know whether it sounds faster, but it always sounds too fast to me. I like to linger over those wonderful melodies. I like to hear them clear, and I like the line. That's it. I like a clear line, and I don't get that very often.
Do you think that was true generally of conductors and soloists then? Were Beethoven and similar works taken a little bit slower?
Maybe. It didn't seem to me to be so fast yet. I find very often I myself play faster than I used to play. I don't know whether that's life or what it is.
When Brahms came to the Hochschule, did you ever hear him conducting any of his own works?
Yes, I heard him once rehearsing the Tragic Overture. And that was wonderful. I remember the way he began that. You know, that beautiful melodic line, and the legato of that was so beautiful. He went over that once or twice with the orchestra to get it as he wanted it. I've never heard it again quite like that. But how much that was my adoration of Brahms and the Hochschule and the orchestra and all that, I don't know. But there was something quite different about it. Now they rush through it. I can't bear this fast playing and noisy playing. I've heard too much noisy playing. You can make such wonderful sounds with pianissimo playing on a piano that'll carry through a big hall, however softly you play. But of course it's got to be done with care and careful pedaling too. But it's lovely when it comes off.
Do you remember Joachim's concerts in London?
I remember some of those pops, Monday and Saturday pops, at old St. James's Hall. They were lovely, but it's a beautiful hall for sound. And they pull down the good halls now, you see, so sad. But they were wonderful concerts. And I remember one Saturday, I suppose it was, I went to one and I went round to the artist's room and talking to Houseman, the cellist. They were all friends of mine. They all knew me, you see, from the Hochschule. And he said, you know, Brahms died this morning, and we're not going to tell Joachim till the concert's over. And that must have been in '97, I think. And that was one of the last concerts I ever heard the quartet play.
What were the audiences like then?
Well, I think all very musical ones, all people who loved music. And mostly people, I think, who loved quartets. After all, quartets, the beginning of music, really, isn't it? I think a good quartet's a lovely thing.
What was their tone like?
Oh, I don't know. Must have been lovely. It could only have been good, couldn't it? I don't know. I mean, they were very well matched. There was Joachim and Bart and Kruse and Houseman, and they were four men who played together a great deal. Or there was Halliard at one time, too.
And, of course, Joachim played in concerts.
Oh, yes, he used
to
play. Well, his Beethoven concerto was lovely. But, of course, latterly he had rheumatics in his fingers, you know, and at the end of his life his tone wasn't so pure. But he was old when he died, and he'd worked very hard, you know, he was very hard, and a very unhappy man. He had a very unhappy face, I remember, but such a kind face, you know, full of kindness and sympathy, and wonderfully sympathetic to students.
He wasn't a strict disciplinarian at all.
Well, when it came to playing, yes, but only in that way.
Did you ever hear him playing the Brahms concerto with his own cadenza?
Oh, I think I did. I also heard him play his own concerto. And I heard Hallier play his own concerto, which is a lovely concerto. I don't know why anybody doesn't play it. I think it's in F major, I think. I wouldn't be certain. And of course he's written a Hungarian concerto, hasn't he? That used to be played. But the F major is lovely. It's never played now. I guess it's really difficult, I don't know. But not too difficult for modern people to play. They can do anything on the violin. Wonderful.
When did you meet Clara Schumann?
Mrs. Bennicke, Mendelssohn's daughter, who'd wanted me to go and have lessons with Clara Schumann, wanted me to go and play to her when I finished at the Hochschule. So I had to go, really rather unwillingly. I don't know why, but I didn't want to go. However, I went, and I was looked after by the Mendelssohn family, and I went to see Frau Schumann. And I arrived at her house, and the front door was opened by that disagreeable daughter of hers. What was her, Mary? She never liked anybody to have anything to do with her mother, frightfully jealous of her mother, you see. But I was allowed in, and I went into the room, and I found Madame Schumann there, an old lady, but she was really only about 74, I think. But she looked old, beautifully dressed, a good deal of jewellery about, a lot of rings on her hands, which surprised me as a pianist, but of course she wasn't playing then.
That must have been just before her death.
Yes, well, very soon after that she had a stroke, and then she died. A few months after that, I think. I was really the last stranger to see her.
Did she receive you sympathetically?
Oh, yes, she couldn't have been nicer. It was her daughter that was so disagreeable. Resented me going to see her mother. Oh, yes, she was really very nice to me. And, of course, she was very devoted to my teacher, Rudolph. Very devoted to him. They were great friends.
Did you feel the household was a happy one?
I didn't think about that. I only thought I was in the presence of a great person, which she was. Then I played to her, and she expressed herself as pleased, at least I thought so, and she said that I hadn't got the physique to be a professional pianist. I was much too delicate. But I was really cross about that, because I said I was not delicate. I was very strong, because I always looked younger than my age, because I was thin and wiry, but very strong. And then I went away. She was very nice to me, and she thanked me for playing. I remember I played some Schumann, and I also played that Gulli, that music that the Rudolph liked so much, by the Italian. And she was rather interested in that. And then I went. I was set out of the door by Mary, very disagreeable. And then I went, and somehow or other, an article appeared in an Australian paper of my account of my going there to see her. And it mentioned her rings. Well, I had no recollection of ever having written that, but I might have. You know, you never know what you write in a letter, but I didn't write anything for publication. And Mary Schumann got hold of that and was frightfully angry with me. And she wrote to Joachim, and she wrote to Mrs. Bennicke, and she said she would do all she could to spoil my career. So I remember when that letter came in Berlin, I went off straight away to see Joachim at about 9 o'clock in the morning. I went up to his house, which was very brave of me, really, wasn't it? And he was going out for a drive round the Tiergarten, and I went with him, and I told him all that. And I remember he patted my hand and said, oh, well, we all know Mary Schumann, or something like that, you see, and no more was said about it. And I was forgiven. But I was not forgiven by Mary Schumann's half-brother, Bargill, who wouldn't talk to me again for ages. But however, I didn't care tuppence about that, you see. I mean, I knew I hadn't written anything disagreeable. I just described her. And she had a great many rings on her hand. Well, there's no harm in describing that, but I got in that frightful row for saying that. But owing to this daughter, she thought it was something against her mother. You know, there's a Schumann sort of aura that goes round with the Schumann family. And I used to know some people in North London, some were called Spire, all very musical people, who were great friends of the Schumanns. And there was a bust of Madame Schumann in their house, and you know, pictures of Schumann and all the Joachim quartet. They all went there to play, and it was a wonderful, wonderful house. But nothing could touch the Schumanns, you see. Everything had to be on those Schumann lines, and no one was ever as good or better than the Schumanns were. It was a most peculiar atmosphere, and it always depressed me. Wasn't that funny? I was always depressed by the Schumanns, although I loved Schumann's music.
Madame Schumann was worshipped as a goddess, was she?
Yes, she was worshipped, and she could do no wrong. But I can't explain to you what my feeling was about the Schumanns, but I've always had that feeling, but loved him, loved his music. And oh, I know what another thing I had against Madame Schumann was that Brahms used to go down to see her. You know, Brahms was very friendly with her and terribly good to her. And after Robert Schumann died, she was very hard up, I think. But Brahms used to go down and see her and go with something in his pocket that he wanted to show her. Who knows what it mightn't have been, and she hadn't time for him. And I always used to think that was terrible, not to have time for anything that Brahms brought to show you. It might have been the second concerto, it might have been anything.
Did you ever hear her play?
No. I'm told the way she played the first 8 bars or 4 bars of the number 4 Beethoven was wonderful. Nobody's ever quite played it like she does. So I'm told, but I never heard her. Oh, it must have been lovely playing, really.
She's meant to have had a most marvellous touch.
Yes, she had a very hard teacher, and her father.